be launching a tasty pastry. It's a low-carb Pop-Tart. It's got 3 to 4 grams of net carbs, and we love this show. This is our best place to be in LA.
Welcome back to Legendary Foods Muscle in the Morning. I'm Dave Palumbo, and today is Thursday, August 18th, 2022. And let's find out what's going on in the world of bodybuilding and fitness. If you didn't catch our Recap Wednesday show yesterday, you're going to want to do that as soon as we wrap up here today, because we laid out all the action from last weekend's Texas Pro, where we saw another incredible performance in the Open from former 212 Olympia champ Kamal Elgargni. Now, a few days before he took the stage in Texas, Kamal was on a podcast where he was asked about the possibility of competing in the Open Olympia this year. And I think his response surprised a lot of people, because he said in no uncertain terms that he would absolutely do the Open and that he believed he would be a top 6 finisher, which would be absolutely incredible if it happened. If memory serves, the last time we saw anything like this was back in 2008, when David Henry competed in both the 202 and the Open Olympia. And that was when David was still at the peak of his powers. Now, obviously, Kamal didn't win last weekend, so this is still all speculative at this point. But it is an interesting topic of conversation, because if you can find a way to earn a qualification for the Open, the entire weekend is going to be a lot more interesting. For the sake of argument, let's just say Kamal does end up finding a way to qualify for the Open Olympia. Because if he does, we might have an unprecedented situation on our hands, because it would be hypothetically, it would mean that we would see another former 212 Olympia champion, Shaun Clarida, competing on the Open stage as well, if he decides to. Now, here's where this thing gets real interesting. Recently on Instagram, Shaun said that he was awaiting a decision from the Pro League officials with regard to whether or not he would be granted permission to compete in both divisions, because he, unlike Kamal, is currently qualified for the Open thanks to his win at the Legion Sports Festival last year. So if Shaun is given the green light and Kamal ends up qualifying on points or even with an outright win, then you'd imagine that he would also have to be granted the same access by default. So if we could have 2 former 212 Olympia champs, a former Open Olympia champion, and our current Olympia champion all on the same stage at the same time at the biggest venue in our sport, now tell me, as a bodybuilding fan, how could you not be rooting for this to happen? I hope all of the women's physique fans out there are paying attention right now, because your reigning and defending 2-time Olympia champion just entered the chat. And being all but radio silent for the better part of the last few weeks, all of a sudden, Villegas has decided to start making her presence felt again. When she released this video from last year's Olympia prep, she wrote in the caption that her performance this year was going to be on a different level, which is a major statement when you consider how incredible she was looking during the last 2 years during her title run. Her conditioning and attention to detail almost feels like it's at another level. So even if she comes in only slightly better, it's still going to take a Herculean effort from someone to knock her off her throne. After what we saw from Andrew Jack last weekend, as a bodybuilding fan, it's not hard to get excited about the new generation of athletes that we have coming up through the pipeline now. And even though Carlos Thomas hasn't touched an IFBB stage yet, he's definitely someone who falls along the same lines. The latest word coming from Carlos's camp is that he's planning to spend the next few months trying to add some quality size before he shifts gears sometime around October to start getting ready for his pro debut. Lately, it feels like we've seen more and more young guys come in and be competitive at the highest level right out of the gates. And that wasn't the case a few years ago. So if he really dials it in over the next few months, he could potentially be someone who goes the Andrew Jack route by delivering the wow factor right out of the gate. And that does it for yet another edition of Muscle in the Morning. I'm Dave Palumbo, reminding you to always be true to your passions, and make sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.